Here we are at San Diego Comic-Con 2019, and we're talking to Whilce Portacio. Whilce, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
So, Whilce, tell the audience, what were some of your childhood comic book artist inspirations growing up?
During that time, it was the big heavy influence still of the 60s guys. So I had like a triumvirate of three. Neal Adams at the time was coming in, and so he was bringing illustrative stuff, so real anatomy and stuff like that. And I'm an anatomy freak, so I jumped on that stuff. And then Kirby, I really got into Kirby just for his imagination. And then it's along the same lines, because I'm such a science fiction freak. You know, before comics, I started just devouring science fiction novels. Then I bumped into the artwork of Alex Nino. Yes. And he was like pure sci-fi, pure fantasy. He was just like, I mean, it's just like his hand would just go and just create these weird worlds that you couldn't right away understood, but then that made you look at his drawings more and more.
So is that like the DC and Warren stuff he used to do, like in the 70s, early 80s?
Oh yeah. And then also like when Marvel started doing some of their black and whites, like I remember being floored by Iron Fist with Rudy Nibres, where he was at that time. I don't know if you remember, he was doing some ink work, and then he would put a gray wash on it. Right. You know, but he would do it in feathered, like he was inking. Yeah. So it was kind of like a double thing, but with a nice contrast to it.
He inked over Ditko too on the fly. And
Well, a lot of those Filipino guys, you know, they were just powerhouse workhorses. I mean, they did almost anything and everything. You know, they could take, you know, chicken scratch and turn it into a full-fledged, you know, fully rendered book, and you'd never know that it wasn't. I think that's why a lot of those guys were like, you know, the editors really needed these kind of guys. I mean,
to get the job done, high quality work.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, like, you know, today's standard, which has been a standard for a long time, is a page a day. But those guys didn't know that, because as I found out talking with other people from because before the Filipino guys came over here and worked for DC and Marvel and others, they were in the Philippines working for what was called comics with a K. And those were basically like romance and horror stuff. Well, that standard was 8 pages a week, penciled, ink, and lettered by just the one guy.
Yeah. It's a huge job.
Yeah, it's a huge job. So when they came over here, again, you know, they were young artistic Turks that just wanted to prove themselves, so they didn't know better. You know, they didn't know to slow down.
Right. Yeah, that was the early 70s, and it was a huge wave of artists.
A huge wave. It's a huge wave. So it's great. I was raised here. I'm 56 now, and I've been here since I was 2 years old. So I grew up absorbing this, you know, American culture, and I didn't actually learn Tagalog, the Philippine one of the Philippine languages, until like 10 years ago. You know, so my point is, I was just fully absorbed in American culture, American art culture. So then, when these guys came on the scene, it was like, it was a huge breath of air, because it was totally different. And then to see them just. Because, I mean, at the time, a lot of the magazine work was considered, you know, okay, that's, you know, most people aren't seeing that. That's mostly a market for military, you know, servicemen and stuff. But the amount of work they did, the type of work they did, and effortlessly, you know.
And a lot of them were inspired by like Hal Foster, so they're putting in a high quality illustration.
High quality illustration. So growing up as a quote unquote an American kid, and then slowly getting into my Filipino roots, and then to find out that in the 60s and the 70s you had this migration of these phenomenal talents, you know, and then they, you know, took reign for a couple decades, and then, you know, I come on the scene and I don't know any other Filipino artists, but then I slowly start finding some, and then I go back home to the Philippines, and I set up a school there, and I discovered like Lineal Yu and Philip Tan, and now you have Carlo, you have Miko, you have Jerome, so we have another wave. So it's cool that I'm now part of a tradition. But it's very interesting that here in the Philippines, thousands and thousands of miles away, not only do we almost everybody speaks English, but we totally understand American culture and American comics. So them coming over here, there's no learning curve. It's just give them a plot and go. And that's the way it is with me. But then I was raised here. Right.
So tell the audience, how'd you get into the comic book industry? When that happened? How'd that happen?
There's a film connection too, because I'm a Navy brat. My dad retired in '79. I was 16, I think, at the time. So he wanted us, because we were raised in the States, he wanted us then to experience the Philippines. So we went back to the Philippines, and after 2 years finished high school. Then I went to college. I went to an art college over there, and art over there was really great, but it was about abstract painting. And I'm not really an abstract. I'm a realist. So I got out of college, came back here, had an auntie and cousins in San Diego. My older cousin drags me over and pulls my portfolio together and says, "We're going to San Diego Con." And I go, "What's that?" And this is way back. So this is when San Diego Comic Con was in the Civic Center.
What year was that?
That must have been 85.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 84 or 85. Yeah, so it was way over there. But knock on wood, I've been very, very lucky in my life. So that year, my first year, I don't even know what San Diego Con is. My cousin dragged me over with my portfolio, and every single Marvel editor was there looking for talent.
Oh, that's cool.
So I get caught up in that, and boom. And it's interesting, too, because I originally, as a kid, I grew up in the 60s, so I wanted to be an astronaut. But I'm too short. My kneecaps would blow if I ejected out of the ejector seats, because there's only one size and my legs are too short. And then I wanted to become a science. And then I got into science fiction novels. So then, because that, I wanted to become a movie director.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, before that could happen, and I was really setting my ways there, my cousin comes in and drags me over. And as you know, that was the beginning of a lot of this. The birth of the X Office, not the birth of the X Office, but the huge expansion of the X Office, and then that for us going into Image, and then everything that we have right now. Right. So, in what I thought would be just this, okay, let me explore this pond for a little while. More than 30 years later, I'm still here, stuck in this pond, and it's still going. Yeah. It's still going.
Great professional lifestyle, and you have a great body of work behind you and in front of you. So what projects are you working on now?
I'm in a very, very lucky position right now where I can do covers. So I'm going to do one more year of covers, though I did an issue of Major X of Rob Liefeld a month ago. Just test my squeaking bones to see if I could, do a monthly book again, an issue again, and I could. So, but I'm in the sweet position where, for more than 30 years, I did, the page a day. I did interior work for month in and month out, where you get to the point after like 5-10 years that, you have to go to conventions, so fans will bring up comic books and remind you of your work, because you do page 1 and then you go on, you do page 20, and then you clap, go to FedEx, or now you scan it and send it over, and the next day you start on page 1. Right. So it becomes this blur after a while.
A grind and a blur together. Huh?
Yeah, and so the professional part of that is actually being able to effortlessly do storytelling and doing drawing that will appeal, but without thinking about it, because you only have 4 weeks, So when they started offering me last year to do covers where I could take up to a week to do one image, and then really think about it, and not just let my instincts go, but actually, excise part of that film director desire in me, because I'm quite fortunate that even though my dream initially was to become a film director, doing comics is much better. I mean, you hear all of the big guys, directors, complain that at the end of the project, they're like dead tired. Because every day they're answering questions like, so what color shoelace would Hulk wear? They have to make decisions on everything and make sure everybody is, in that feel, to hit the mood of the project and everything, day by day to scene by scene. Me, if I want it to rain, it rains. Yeah. I don't have to call up the fire department. I don't have to ask accounting how much is 400 gallons of water going to cost me. If I see a pretty girl on the street, she's in the book. Yeah. I get to excise all of the artistic skill that a movie director does in casting, in acting, directing the actors to act the way he wants, in deciding on production design for locations and everything, deciding the pace, deciding the choreography and everything. I can do that, but I can do it in a godlike way where if I want it to happen, it just happens. Yeah.
That's a great description. So the vision is implemented right away, right there. Yeah.
It's all just up to me. Whatever I can do. That's why I'm one of those advocates for, I believe every genre, every field has to have their place. Now, so for me, what comics is if I can imagine, I can draw it. There's no consideration of budget. There's no consideration of, do we have fabricators that can do this? Or can we do this CG, right? It's just up to me. So I believe almost all our stories should be epic, should be as big as our imagination of the concept can be, never tempered by any real world consideration.
Like a Cecil B. DeMille movie, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think, and then in the inter-industry vein, we should be thinking, hey, is this story a story that, okay, Hollywood can do everything now, but are they going to have a tough time doing this? Right. Or are they going to need a $500 million budget to do this? I think we should do that, because that then pushes the boundary of story and concepts, instead of trying to keep it in the realm of, can we do this? Right. But, because again, if you ask that question, can we do it? Well, it's, can I do it? And most of us guys in the top level, we can do anything. That's what the skill set is, and so I think all our stories should be that way. I think, again, because I'm a science fiction guy, everything based in some kind of reality or some kind of science, and you keep a strong adherence and discipline to the rules that you've set, but let yourself go. There's so much that still hasn't been imagined. Imagination comes from limitations, from the unknown, and then us artists going, okay, maybe this explains that, or maybe this is what's really happening. It's fantasy, it's conjecture, but the non-creative people, they don't have the time to think about that. I mean, it's life. I really am proud that I could take my field back to way back. Leonardo da Vinci and everybody, they did comics, but the definition of comics back then was, a lot of those guys back, the classical guys, did like the gods, the Greek gods and stuff. Well, they couldn't call Zeus and say, Zeus, can you pose for me for a little while? So they had to imagine that. And then reading the stories of like Waterhouse going to Egypt and then measuring what remained of the pyramids and stuff. And then copying down all the hieroglyphics so that he could get exact. So he was doing the same thing. He was taking mythos, a script, a plot, a fantastic one, and then trying to imagine it with his realistic style. Imagine it for regular people. what it might have looked like, and hopefully from there inspire. And then you go and you take it even further, where everybody back in the way Stone Age days, or the medieval days, life was just too much. I mean, you didn't have supermarkets or anything. You had to not only be able to hunt down your food, find food, process it, skin it, know what not to eat in it, know what to do with the organs and stuff, and then know how to cook it and know how to find salt if you were lucky. Back then, everybody, almost everybody, 90% of the people, I believe, had life to concentrate on. So when I come along and I'm too cowardly to fight any of the wars because I don't want to get killed, or my back won't be able to take the work of farming or anything like that. And so I'm just walking around and I bump into these guys dead tired, 6 o'clock at night, eating their dinner, and I come in with this fantastic story of what if a lord and his knights were benevolent, which is what they're thinking because everybody's bad. But what if there were these powerful people who were good? So I'm telling them this fantastic story, King Arthur, and it sticks because it's not what they could imagine, but it's what they hope could happen. So us storytellers, us creative people, we've got a really long lineage, and I don't think we hark on that enough. We are really at the roots of society's inspiration, society's explaining what life is, what phenomena is. Is the sun gonna come back? What is the sun? Again, most people don't have any time to deal with that. They just, oh great, I have food now, and hey, that guy's coming. Is that guy gonna come around again? He could tell these weird stories. I don't believe in him, but it's fun listening to this stuff. Sure. And then okay, hey, they offer me, a little corner in the shed or in the the barn, or and they give me some food. I can't farm, I can't hunt, and so that cycle works itself, and I think that happened throughout our history.
Wow. I like that. So imagination, inspiration, hope, and bringing that to people to enjoy. Whilce Portacio, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate the talk.
Oh, thank you. This is fun, and it's great. You guys are digital now. In the old days when it was tape, I would always run out all their tapes. So,
no, we love your.
Let's run out the battery. Let's try that.
And we love your passion. Really, thank you.